sisters, because we care deeply about the future of this country. And we know what's at stake with Brett Kavanaugh on the court. You all remember 2016, when Donald Trump said over and over and over again that he would appoint Supreme Court justices who would end Roe versus Wade. You remember when he said there should be some form of punishment for women who seek abortion care, and with Brett Kavanaugh, that would become a reality. You can boo, let's hear it. Abortion will be criminalized and women will be punished if Brett Kavanaugh is confirmed. And the number of abortions won't go down, but the deaths and injuries to women will go up. And you know, some might say that Roe v. Wade is settled law. Well, guess who actually settles law in this country? The United States Supreme Court. If Brett Kavanaugh is confirmed, he'll be the one settling the law alongside Neil Gorsuch, Trump's first Supreme Court pick. That means, yes, let's hear more of that, you guys. And that means the man who is already on record ruling against a woman's right to abortion access in Texas, Brett Kavanaugh, will be the one settling the laws of this nation. The laws that determine what we can and can't do with our bodies and our futures. But we all know that this isn't just about a woman's right to choose, not even close. It is about the future of voting rights. It's about the future of LGBTQ rights. It's about workers' rights, immigrant rights, environmental protections. Nothing less than the future of our democracy is at stake, you guys. So today, you all have been out there making history. You have been loud and clear today and for weeks saying no to Brett Kavanaugh. And in fact, Brett Kavanaugh is the least popular nominee for the Supreme Court, nominated by the least popular president in a generation. And by the way, do you know what's about 40% more popular than those guys? Anyone? Roe versus Wade. Our senators need to know this, and they need to stop this president from installing Kavanaugh. And can I be honest with you? Do we really want Michael Cohen's co-conspirator to be in charge of picking our Supreme Court justices? So let's keep this energy going tonight, and let's make sure senators all around this campus, like Dean Heller in Nevada, Susan Collins in Maine, Lisa Murkowski in Alaska, can hear us demand that they vote no on Brett Kavanaugh. Some housekeeping details. If you're tweeting tonight, use that hashtag #StopKavanaugh. That's hashtag #StopKavanaugh. We want people to see this all across the country. Now, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, someone who has been fighting for our rights since her entire career. And she's not just fighting alone. She is fighting alongside all of you and millions of NARAL members across the country, so many of whom are here today, who traveled across the country to say no to Brett Kavanaugh. So I'd like a big round of applause for NARAL President Elise Hogue.
Thank you, Kaylee, and thank every single one of you. Make no mistake, 10, 20, 30 years from now, September 4th, 2018 will be marked in history as the day that we turn the tide back towards justice, democracy, and rights for every woman, every family, and every American in this country. Today was a beautiful, beautiful act of democratic participation. Yes. You guys could see that the Republicans were getting very frustrated. You could see that Senator Grassley was getting disgruntled. And as I said on Twitter, I know how hard it is when democratic process and the voices of the people get in the way of your illegitimate scheme to steal our court and oppress our rights. And you all are such a huge part of that. The GOP, who is moving to install an extreme and dangerous nominee through an illegitimate and sham process by a president who is almost certainly a co-conspirator in a crime, was knocked back on their heels today due to every single one of you lifting your voices. I spoke in the rotunda earlier at the What's at Stake vigil, and I held a picture of my children. And I told the story of how I stood on stage at the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia in July of 2016 and told my personal abortion story. Not because it was ever on my bucket list of things that I wanted to do to share my most personal moments with millions of people around the country, but because I knew if my story had even the tiniest chance of making this country think twice about the direction that it was going in, it was crucially important and it was worth it. I hoped that we wouldn't get to this moment. But as I stood in the rotunda today holding a picture of my children, my very wanted, beautiful children who would not be here today if I had not had the ability to make my own decision.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn McCurdy-Keats here with act.tv, speaking with Charlotte Clemmer.
I am fighting for their futures, for your children's futures, for all of our children's futures. Any woman who has faced a pregnancy that she does not want knows how terrifying that moment is. Any woman who has faced a very wanted pregnancy and had a terrible diagnosis knows how terrifying that moment is. Any woman who desperately wants to get pregnant and is challenged in getting pregnant knows how terrifying that moment is. You know who does not understand that? The men sitting in that room trying to put someone on the Supreme Court who would interfere in that moment in our lives. This is about abortion. It's also about personal liberty. It's also about criminalizing who we are as people. It is also about relegating women to second-class status, because when we are empowered, we push for progress and diversity and all of the values that move us forward and threaten their control of power that they are holding onto with a tighter and tighter grasp. And make no mistake, Kavanaugh is their Hail Mary pass. They will do anything they can to get him on the court because they know their agenda will not withstand democratic process. That is our secret weapon. I love this man right here. That is our secret weapon. He is not popular. The American people don't want this guy. They don't like the process. They don't like what he stands for. And last Sunday, we held the single largest day protest to oppose a Supreme Court nominee in the history of the United States. Women today put their bodies on the line and went to jail to stop this illegitimate process. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, what are we willing to do to win this fight? Because when we win this fight, and we can win this fight, we can win this fight, because today is not the end, it is the beginning. And when we pull out all the stops and leave it all on the field and win this fight, it will not just be a moment to appreciate the independence of the courts and our freedoms and liberty. It will be a moment where we say we will write the narrative of the future of this country, and we will all do it together. So get out there, stop Kavanaugh, leave it all on the field, keep it up. I love every single one of you. Thank you.
Give it up one more time for Elise Hogue, our fearless leader in this. Woo! I have the honor and privilege of introducing 3 women who are bravely here today, taking time out of their evening to make clear why we cannot have Brett Kavanaugh on the court. So let's hear it for Planned Parenthood members Ebony, Alex, and Sophie.
guys doing? Good, good. I'm Ebony Wiggins. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and I've had an abortion. I say that with a smile, not a frown, because I'm not ashamed. The women behind me are not ashamed either. I was 22 years old. I was young. I was in school. I had my whole life ahead of me, and I got pregnant unexpectedly with a guy that I did not want to have a baby with. I was incredibly scared. I didn't want to be a mother, and I did not really know what to do. I called my OBGYN, who was a good family friend at the time, who actually had just moved and told me to go to Planned Parenthood. I had never searched out for Planned Parenthood. I had never really had a need for it. That day changed for me. I went to Planned Parenthood and they took care of me. I was able to get my procedure done that day. To say that that procedure was no big deal, no, I wouldn't say that. But it was something that at the end of the day, you know what, I did that for myself. I did that because I wanted to be able to stand here with you today. Okay? The women behind me as well, they're going to feel the same way and they're going to tell you their story, but Kavanaugh cannot. He threatens all of that. And if people who don't realize that, I hope you hear our stories. Not to necessarily say that you guys are wrong, but whatever is right for someone might not be right for somebody else. We want to make sure that we have options, safe options. Safe options. Safe options.
Hey y'all, my name is Alex. I'm here from Denver, Colorado. So when I was 23 years old, I was actually in the Marine Corps serving our wonderful country and willing to die for it. Die for the rights that we have today that are so amazing and wonderful. I decided I needed an abortion because, just like she had said, I wasn't ready to be a parent. And Kavanaugh thinking that I can die for my country and make that decision to serve our country but not make my own healthcare decisions is ridiculous. He's bad for justice and he's bad for people that can get pregnant. Have a great day, everybody.
I'm Sophie Brill, and I'm here from Arizona, and I mean, a little louder. It's not that bad. Okay. I have also had an abortion. I was 20 years old. I was months away from starting school, and I really wanted to start my career before I started a family. And I wasn't going to let a pill malfunction get in my way. And I didn't. And the abortion itself was really not that big of a deal, which is exactly how it should be. And I know that I'm incredibly lucky to say that. Really, the most extraordinary thing about it was that it happened on Valentine's Day. You can laugh. But I am here today. Standing up here feels like a radical act, and it shouldn't. But I'm here today because I made a commitment to fighting for these rights, because my experience was difficult enough, and I didn't have to deal with a lot of the obstacles that women will have to deal with if this guy gets confirmed. So, no Kavanaugh. Thank you so much.
Up next, we have the honor and privilege of hearing from a senator who has been sounding the alarm on the judicial crisis in this country. He has been relentless. He has fought for us. He's been by our side. Let's hear it for Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley.
Now, this is what democracy looks like. Thank you for coming out tonight. And if I ask you, Kavanaugh, you say Kavanaugh? No. Kavanaugh? No. Kavanaugh? No. Absolutely not. There's so many reasons to say no. Let's start with the fact that the president instructed his personal attorney to commit a crime. The president is under investigation. The president is an unindicted co-conspirator. Shouldn't we let the investigation be completely done before any nomination is considered over here in the Capitol? And then, out of a list of 25 individuals that were forwarded to him by the Federalist Society, he chose the one who has this massively expansive vision of an imperial presidency. He believes that a president cannot be indicted. More than that, he believes that a president cannot even be investigated. He believes that if the court says something is unconstitutional, but the president thinks it isn't, the president can ignore the court. How can you put someone on the court who thinks the president can ignore the court? So here we have a vision of the presidency that is fit for a king and a kingdom, but not for a presidency and a republic. So let's say no to anyone who has that vision. And then we have all the other reasons that come, just cascading one after the other, as mentioned. Do we want a justice who is legislating from the court and is anti-worker? No! Anti-consumer? No! Anti-healthcare? No! And we certainly don't want an individual who wants to strip American women of their rights. So here we are. Let's say yes to freedom and yes to justice and no to Kavanaugh. We need to stand up for Roe versus Wade, something we thought would never be endangered, but is endangered at this very single moment. So thank you all for coming out. Rally in the offices of your senators. We need your voice on the street, your feet on the street, to be feet inside these offices so people understand, the senators understand, that we believe in our American rights and we don't want Kavanaugh and Trump taking them away. Thank you all. Let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator, for doing all that you do to fight for our rights. Up next, we have an incredible young woman who is here all the way from Kentucky just to be here, to be with us, to say no to Brett Kavanaugh. Let's hear it for Protect Our Care's Angela Maskey.
Hi everyone, my name is Angela, and I'm 21 years old, and I'm a native of Kentucky. For the past month, I've been showing up to Senator Collins and Murkowski's offices every day the Senate is in session to ask them to meet with me about Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court. I've been doing this because my senators, Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul, can I get some booze, by the way? Yeah. My senators have shown time and again that they won't stand up for my reproductive rights. Senators Collins and Murkowski, I'm addressing you directly. This nomination won't just affect your constituents. It will affect people like me, particularly young people, who live in states where abortion access is already extremely limited. Kentucky has only one abortion clinic remaining, as well as a number of abortion restrictions, including a 20-week ban. If Kavanaugh is confirmed, abortion access for Kentuckians like me could be restricted even further. Every senator, including Senators Collins and Murkowski, need to recognize that this nomination is not about Kavanaugh's personal life or what kind of soccer dad he is. It's about how his rulings will affect people, especially young people, all over the country for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. We could get another boo for Senator Paul. Boo. So, can I hear you shout if you care about women's rights? What about LGBTQ rights? What about voting rights, immigrant rights, economic prosperity? Well, if you love all of those things, you are going to love our next speaker. She is the president of Center for American Progress, who is fighting every single day to protect all of these things. Let's hear it for Neera Tanden.
I love this guy. Oh, no, thank you. Okay, so for those of you who know me, you know I'm kind of blunt. So let me say this. We are in a constitutional crisis with this nominee. Why are we in a constitutional crisis? Because we learned 2 weeks ago today that Donald Trump is an unindicted co-conspirator, according to a sitting court. Who was sitting behind Brett Kavanaugh today? Don McGahn. Oh, that person too. But Don McGahn, who is talking to the special counsel, right? What is happening before our eyes? What is happening is that the President of the United States is under investigation and wants to pick the judge who will oversee his case. Do we let common criminals pick their judges? Should we let Donald Trump pick the judge who will oversee whether he gets subpoenaed or not? Just oddly enough, out of all the judges he could pick from, Donald Trump picks the one who believes that a president can't be subpoenaed. Special counsels aren't constitutional. Do you think that's a coincidence? No. So, we have a possible unindicted co-conspirator picking a judge. And is that judge just bad on issues of executive power? No. He also believes in restricting all our rights. What unites all of us is that Brett Kavanaugh believes in the advancement of rights for nobody except the corporate donors of the GOP. Oh, I forgot one group, and their billionaire supporters. He believes in restricting rights for everyone. Women, people of color, people with disabilities, LGBTQ, brothers and sisters, and of all genders, and the one group he wants to expand rights for are corporations. Elise is right. This is a winnable fight. Why is it winnable? Because this is the least popular nominee. Because the American people know, they have a sense of what's going on here. They know this system is rigged. Rigged against individuals, rigged against people who need justice in favor of those who already have all the power in our society. And that's why what we do over the next 72 hours, the next 2 weeks, the next 3 weeks, we will live with for decades. 10 years from now or 2 years from now, when Brett Kavanaugh is overturning Roe, do you want to think, I just wish I did some more? Do you want to think back, wasn't that a crazy time when the president was under investigation and later on was possibly impeached, and we allowed him not to get one justice, but two? So I ask you, I am so grateful for each and every one of you being here tonight, for what you did today, what you'll do tonight, and over the next days and weeks. But I have to say, we have to each do more. Call your senators. Call your friends to call your senators. Call your cousins in red states to call their senators. This is the time where you have to say, you cannot argue, Susan Collins. You are pro-choice, and give a wink and a nod to this guy. We will defeat you in 2020. You will not be a senator again. Lisa Murkowski, you cannot claim to be pro-choice and vote for this guy. We will defeat you too. The American people are the ones who will save this country, and they will and can save us from Kavanaugh if we all fight over the days and months, hopefully just a month ahead. I am so grateful to be with so many fantastic leaders, and I am thrilled to be in this fight alongside each and every one of you, not just for our rights, but our kids' rights and our grandkids' rights, because this guy will be on the court for decades, and we have to remember what we do now will resonate in history. Thank you.
Let's hear it one more time for Neera Tannen, everybody. Now, up next, I don't know if it's possible to find someone who fights harder for women's rights than our next speaker. She is from the great state of Washington and spends every single minute of every single day fighting for all of you. Please, let's have a huge round of applause for Senator Patty Murray.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Oh, you make my day. Thank you all so much for being here. I don't have to tell you, this could not be more important. We need your voices louder every day, more than you can know. You all see what's happening here. Republicans are doing everything they can to jam this nomination through the Senate and onto that Supreme Court. We are here to say, not so fast. We are here to say, not on our watch. Republicans are hoping that nobody's going to notice. They are refusing to release documents. They're hoping that people are not paying attention, and we cannot let that happen. Why? We know what's at stake. We know this could not be more serious. The health care rights and freedoms for women across this country, Roe v. Wade, protections for people with pre-existing conditions, the environment, civil rights, disability rights, schools, the rights of workers, the security of our elections. This list goes on. This is about your future and what happens with our country. We have to be out speaking loud. Republicans have the majority. They're going to try and rush this nomination through as you're watching. We have to make sure that they hear from all of us. We have to make sure that they hear from people all across this country. We have to make sure that they hear the stories and hear about the impact and what is at stake. They want to just hear from lobbyists and special interest groups and extreme conservatives. Don't let that happen. Make your voices heard. Make your friends' voices heard. Neera just told you what you can do. Follow up. Call friends in those states. Call relatives in those states. Talk to people and say, this is serious and we need to hear from all of you. We have to do everything we can together to fight this nomination and reject Judge Kavanaugh and protect those rights and liberties that are so important and that we hold. So thank you all for being here. Keep up the fight. Share your stories. Make your voices heard. We are proud to echo them in that building across the street. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator. Okay, I want everybody to just reach into their pockets and take out their cell phones for a second. Just hold it up in the air. Just hold up your cell phones in the air. This is your reminder that when you get home tonight and for the rest of the week, you are going to call your senator. Even if you're represented by a senator who has confirmed that they will vote no, you have to call and say thank you. And if you don't, if you're represented by someone who hasn't made up their mind, call. Keep calling, okay? We need you all to do this. Next up, we've got a great fighter, another wonderful fighter for women's rights. I don't know how we got so lucky to have so many awesome women here with us. From the great state of California, Congresswoman Barbara Lee.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Neera, especially for your tremendous leadership and your tireless work. I come from the great state of California where I have two great senators, Senator Feinstein and Senator Harris. Yes. Let me just say, all of you, my sisters and brothers, you are the heart and soul and the resistance. You're on the front lines providing life-saving reproductive health care to women. You're bringing the street heat, and that's what we need, street heat I call it. Organizing rallies, vigils, the street heat that we need all across the country. You're bringing us together, all together, united for justice. That's what you're doing. This is a justice cause. And you're keeping me and many of us here on Capitol Hill, you're keeping us inspired and vigilant in these very challenging times. And I tell you, I am confident that you will be the ones to defeat the dangerous nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the United States Supreme Court. You're going to do it. Keep that heat going. It's really an honor to be here with you tonight, especially our young women warriors. Thank you. It's good to see so many young women out here today. With the confirmation hearings beginning today, I can't but help remember. And I want to tell you, I remember the days before Roe versus Wade. I remember the days of back alley abortions very clearly. The days when women, especially women of color and low-income women, were denied access to basic health care. If Brett Kavanaugh is confirmed to the Supreme Court, make no mistake, This administration will continue to turn back the clock on our reproductive rights, including abortion care. We're not going to let that happen, are we? No. We know what they'll do. In case after case, they will erode, they'll undermine, and they'll chip away at women's access to comprehensive reproductive health care, including abortion care. That's what they're going to do. They'll stop at nothing until they end Roe as we know it. And it will be women, especially low-income women and women of color, who will suffer. It will be our basic rights, our civil and our human rights. That's going to be endangered. They will be endangered. And so we cannot allow them to turn back the clock. We cannot allow them to turn back the days to back alley abortions. And we cannot allow them, we can't allow them to take away our hard-fought rights. Are we going to let them do that? No. No way. That's why we're here tonight, to make sure that our voices are heard loud and clear, and remind these senators that November is coming soon. It's coming soon. Brett Kavanaugh's nomination is the greatest threat to Roe in a generation. It must be opposed. It must be stopped. We can't allow the confirmation of any judge who will undermine women's fundamental rights and freedoms. We must demand a Supreme Court that respects women's rights, that respects a woman's right to choose, a woman's right to privacy, keeping the government out of our personal health care decisions. And there's some people who say it's maybe already too late, who say this has already been decided by those in power. Who says that it's easier to give up? We don't say that here, do we? No way, no way. Because here in a democracy, the truth is the power of the people prevails. Senators have the power because of you. That's because you are the power of the people. And you're the powerful ones. So don't forget that. Don't let them tell you it's all over. You're the ones who can stop this dangerous nominee. So thank you again for being here. Thank you for the work you're doing every day. Thank you for, as the young people say in my district, thank you for staying woke. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman, and she is working so hard for all of us. And I am so excited to introduce another woman who is working so hard for all of us on an issue that is so important but isn't talked about enough. It's the issue of money in politics. We need to give a big round of applause for End Citizens United's Tiffany Muller. Woo!
Thank you so much, and thank you for being here tonight. I'm Tiffany Muller, the president of End Citizens United. And we're all gathered here tonight to say that dark money is not going to buy another seat on the Supreme Court. You know, End Citizens United was created in response to a Supreme Court decision, Citizens United, that merged two really horrible ideas. It said money is speech and corporations are people. That's right. And it put a for sale sign on our democracy. But we're here to take it back. You know, but we know what we would get with Kavanaugh, don't we? And that's why we saw so much passion today at the hearing, because the Republicans are trying to force this nomination through. That's right, we're not going to let them. Well, you know why? We say hell no to Kavanaugh. What's at stake? Kavanaugh would roll back our rights. He would cement into place Citizens United and corporate power. He would take away workers' rights, LGBTQ rights, women's rights. And you know what else? He would put into place more corruption in our system. And we have enough of that. We know that if President Trump, Senator McConnell, Senate Republicans hand the court over to their corporate donors, everything is at risk. And you know, my very first fight in politics was around the marriage amendments in 2004. Yeah, except that didn't end up going our way, did it? And where we put our faith and our hope was in the Supreme Court. And just less than 10 years later, I stood in Washington, D.C., and I married my wife and legally protected our family. And my daughter now is 2 years old, and we face a situation where she could lose those rights and where she could have less rights than I've had as a woman in this country. And where corporations get to take away the rights of workers and take away protections on our environment and just continue to flood our system with money and power. And I'm not going to stand by and just let it happen, and I know none of you are either. The Supreme Court has created the most corrupt and rigged system where those with the biggest check have the biggest say. But we have something more powerful. We have each other, and we have our voices, and we're going to use them. We are the majority. And we say reject Kavanaugh, and the Senate must reject him as well. We need a justice who will stand for us, who will stand up for women's rights, LGBTQ rights, health care, and stand against money in politics. And that's why we say, what do we say? Thank you.
Okay, you guys, so today we made history when we held an amazing vigil in the Hart Building where we stood up for all people who will be impacted by Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court. That was such a beautiful moment. That went viral across the country. And I have good news for you. We're going to be doing that every day this week in the Hart office building, just like today at 11 o'clock. So make sure if you weren't there today, go tomorrow. It's going to be really, really great, and we're going to make sure that those moments are really making the impact they deserve. That's right. Every day this week. You've got it. So next up, I am so excited to introduce, you know when you're at a wedding or a family reunion and someone gets the prize for traveling the farthest to the event? Well, I think this next group actually would win that prize. We have 7 amazing Alaskans with us who are represented by Lisa Murkowski. We need to tell her to vote no on Kavanaugh. So we're about to hear from 4-time Iditarod winner, recognized as the winningest musher in the world, and 6 other constituents from Alaska. Give it up for Jeff King and Alaskans. Woo!
Well, as you might guess from my resume, this isn't what I'm best at. And we did all come a very long way from both Anchorage, Alaska, and many places in rural Alaska to speak our mind. We were thrilled with the reception that we got from Lisa Murkowski today, her willingness to sit with us and let us air our views. She intently listened, and I'm convinced that she's thinking very hard about the issues that we brought, many of which you've been talking about tonight. Alaska, in addition, Alaska has other unique rights for native sovereignty, village rights, and healthcare issues that, as expensive as it is for you, I assure you it's more in Alaska. And I know it's one of the reasons I'm here. I first got into what little politics I've got into when the Tea Party candidate Joe Miller won the Republican nomination in Alaska. And she beating Lisa Murkowski. And I was part of a flood of Alaskans who called upon each other to write in Murkowski's name and get her back in the Senate. She has been a very, very fantastic, conservative, independent senator, and I trust that she heard us today when we visited. Keep on talking to her. I am the father of 3 girls, and the issues of women's rights, I have countless gay friends and marriage issues. I came to D.C. for a gay wedding several years ago, and many of the issues that you've been speaking to tonight, I share your passion, but I'm here tonight because there's an elephant in the room. And that is the administration in the White House. I come a very long way, and I'm too old to worry about anybody thinking something bad of me, but I'm not happy. I'm really not happy. I feel like Donald Trump has been jumping to the defense of some very bad people. Putin, Kim, Roy Moore, Nazis, Manafort, Cohn, and Bannon, while degrading some of my heroes, such as John McCain and the Gold Star families of the last election. But most of all, as a father of 3 beautiful adult women, his treatment of women cuts deep into this father's soul. I see it with many across my state, my community, and I hear about it around the nation. And I feel like any good that the current administration might accomplish is so horribly tainted by what I perceive as a lack of integrity.
That's reality. That's reality.
Just yesterday, Trump's criticism of Sessions for indictments of 2 congressmen highlight that his appointees should be partisan even when our system of government says they shouldn't. This view is clearly wrong. When naming judiciary nominations, there should be no partisan component. And such selections of the current pick is highly partisan. Trump selected him from a list compiled by a strictly partisan organization, and nothing in the past few weeks has changed the perception that he is a partisan pick. So I'm asking my senators, Lisa Murkowski and Dan Sullivan, to know that a partisan pick for a Supreme Court judge will never be right, regardless of who it is. And then they should postpone this nomination or this hearing I haven't had many bones to pick with my Senator Murkowski, but one of them was not confirming or at least even hearing Obama's Supreme Court nominee. It wasn't fair. It wasn't right. It wasn't democratic. So this small group of Alaskans came to tell you that we want our voice heard as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here today. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine getting on that flight, and I am so proud of you guys doing that for us. Up next, we are going to hear from an amazing woman who is part of this wave of women who are running for office all across the country this election cycle. We're going to hear very briefly, and we're so excited to hear from her. She will, when she's elected, she will be the first Native American woman elected to Congress. Give it up for New Mexico's Deb Haaland. Hello, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so proud to be accompanied by a stage full of amazing Indigenous women standing right behind me. This wave of women, it doesn't only include women of color, it includes all of us, folks who have had trouble finding health care, who have gotten their health care at Planned Parenthood because it's affordable and accessible. And you know what? The Republicans are always wanting to take that away. And that doesn't sit well with me at all. So listen, there's a lot more at stake. Women's reproductive rights are at stake, but so are Indigenous rights with this Supreme Court nominee. So we are going to fight back, right? So listen, I don't want any of you to underestimate your power right now. Because remember back in January 2017 when millions of women crowded the streets of Washington, D.C.? Yes! And that led to an amazing slate of women candidates all over the country, and we're going to do that again right now. Keep marching! Keep marching, keep protesting, keep doing everything that you're doing right now to make sure that the entire country knows that we do not want Brett Kavanaugh in the Supreme Court at all. So just keep it up. Don't ever stop. Thank you all so much. You guys are doing my job for me. This is nice. Awesome. Up next, we have two amazing young women who have dedicated their lives to activism to prevent gun violence in this country. That is a cause deep in my heart, and I know to so many of you. So please give it up for March for Our Lives, Danny and Shahira. Good evening, and thank you all for coming out today. I stand before you, not as a paid protester or as someone trying to push a political agenda. I stand before you as a student who doesn't want to be shot. I stand before you as a teenage girl raised by a strong woman who knows that Kavanaugh will not protect us. I stand before you as a young person walking the path paved for me by revolutionaries who stood up against injustice. I am here to say that our rights rely on Kavanaugh not being sworn in. Today was my first day of school, and one of my most pervasive anxieties was not an upcoming test or who I would sit with at lunch, but rather whether or not I would survive the day. It's impossible not to be worried about this in a country that turns a blind eye to parents bearing their own children. It's impossible to feel safe when our Congress is rife with politicians ruled by greed, people who continually put money over our own lives with no shame. This country is supposed to care about our people. This country is supposed to protect our most vulnerable. This country is supposed to raise our children. Yet this country has the audacity to nominate someone who wrote a 52-page dissent against the ban on assault weapons. Someone who could declare all methods of gun control unconstitutional. Someone who loves guns almost as much as he hates abortion and women's rights and same-sex marriage.
we are probably really pissing him off right now. Frankly, our freedom depends on that. In America, the home of the brave, our politicians are not brave enough to stand up to our president, to our corporations, to our Supreme Court nominees. This is an America where we have to step up and lead because no one else is doing it for us. While Kavanaugh represents everything that America is, we represent everything that America can be. We are the America that I so desperately want to believe exists. Yes. Even though Kavanaugh craves power, all of us together are the only people who have the real power. Change only happens when normal people stand up for what they believe in. I believe that Kavanaugh is not fit for the Supreme Court, and a president under investigation is not fit to nominate him. And I will not rest until that is known to everybody and until our Supreme Court acts, until our Senate acts on it. I hope that you will all join me in that. Thank you.
Senators of the United States of America, vote no. I am cousin of Sabika Sheikh, the Pakistani exchange student who was one of the 10 victims of the Santa Fe, Texas school shooting 3 months ago. Right after the Supreme Court nomination of Kavanaugh, the NRA boasted, promises made, promises kept. With those 4 words, the NRA laughed at the cold-blooded murder of my cousin Sabika. With those 4 words, the NRA mocked every single person in this country who respects the sanctity of constitutional rights but who has the heart, the empathy to fight for gun violence prevention. Senators, with those 4 words, the NRA has asked you perhaps one of the most important questions you will be asked in the lifetime of your public service. Is the gun lobby in this country really so absolutely powerful to hold we, the people, hostage? No. Vote no. Sabika was about to complete her exchange year in the US and go back to Pakistan on June 5. On May 18, she was shot dead in her high school with a handgun. In 2011, Brett Kavanaugh dissented to a decision upholding Washington, D.C.'s requirement to register handguns. By doing that, he stands at odds with every state and federal appeals court who have ever discussed the issue of restricting public access to high-capacity ammo and to register all firearms. By doing that, he stands at odds with the Supreme Court's assertion that rights enshrined under the Second Amendment are not rights to carry and keep any weapon whatsoever, in any manner whatsoever, for any purpose whatsoever. Vote no! In Brett Kavanaugh's own words, a judge must interpret the Constitution as informed by history, tradition, and precedent, yet he stands at odds with the judges appointed by the Republicans and Democrats, judges who repeatedly maintained that reasonable gun laws are consistent. I repeat, consistent with the Second Amendment. Vote no. Senators, communities across the U.S. whose everyday reality is gun violence are looking at you. Vote no. Senators, school children, school teachers, school parents who study every single day under the constant threat of hearing the sound of the first gunshot are looking at you. Vote no. And senators, this 17-year-old exchange student who was a guest in your country is looking at you from up there. You failed her once. Do not fail her again. Vote no.
I love this energy. I love this energy. Can I just hear one big cheer? Let's make sure all the senators still in their offices tonight can hear you. Now I have a couple questions for you all. Who cares about paid family leave? Let me hear you. Who cares about equal pay for equal work? Who cares about access to birth control and health care for women? Well, then you are going to love our next speaker, the wonderful head of the National Partnership for Women and Families. Give it up for Judy Lichtman.
Thank you all. The Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that began today is a sham and a disgrace. It was tainted by Mitch McConnell and his cronies who were determined to rush through it without giving the country a chance to really consider Judge Kavanaugh's records. We have to ask, what are they hiding? Well, they ought to be hiding something, because Judge Kavanaugh would tip the balance on the Supreme Court in ways the country does not want to go. We are looking squarely at the possibility of a Supreme Court that would take away the fundamental women's rights, civil rights, LGBTQ, immigrant and disability rights that we have long relied on the courts to protect. A Supreme Court that would undermine women's economic security in multiple ways. We could lose our right to fair and equal treatment at school and at work. We could lose the Affordable Care Act, and with it the protections that 67 million women and girls with pre-existing conditions rely on for affordable coverage, or any coverage at all. We could lose our right and access to reproductive health care that would be devastating, not just for women's health, but also for our autonomy, our dignity, and economic security. Reproductive health is an economic justice issue, because the freedom to choose if and when and how to become a parent affects a woman's education, her career, her financial health, and determine her retirement security. Kavanaugh is poised to take all that away. No senator who votes to confirm Kavanaugh can ever again claim to care about women's rights, health, or equality. No senator who votes to confirm Kavanaugh can ever again claim to support our fundamental civil rights. Kavanaugh was nominated by a president with a deeply unpopular, sexist, racist, anti-immigrant, homophobic agenda. A vote to confirm Kavanaugh is a vote to extend that agenda well into the future, to impose President Trump's repugnant values on the next generation. A vote to confirm Kavanaugh is a vote to protect those who discriminate and pollute, and to deny people with the right to live and love as they wish. It's a vote to allow presidential abuses of power to go unchecked. And it's a vote for corporate special interests, and it's a vote against all of us. Finally, perhaps most of all, it's a vote the women of America will never forget. Every senator should keep that in mind, and I thank you.
So guys, I just learned something. I just learned that Mitch McConnell's balcony is right there, like right there. So, assuming he's there or not, maybe his staff is there, I want to do just a little call and response here. We're going to say, hey, hey, ho, ho, Kavanaugh has got to go. Hey, hey. Ho, ho, Kavanaugh has got to go. Hey, hey. course, we have some amazing folks who came in from all across the country to be here today with Protect Our Care. I want to hear a real loud DC welcome for Jeffrey, Kelly, and Joseph.
My name is Jeff Jeans, and the Affordable Care Act saved my life. In June of this year, 20 states filed a lawsuit asking the United States District Court for the Northern District of Texas to strike down the Affordable Care Act in its entirety. In an unprecedented move, our United States Department of Justice is refusing to defend a United States law. It is extremely likely that this case will be appealed to the Supreme Court. A ruling striking down the Affordable Care Act will be a death sentence for tens of thousands of Americans. You see, when you are diagnosed with a disease like cancer without health insurance, the result is more than likely death. Kavanaugh's writings, actions, and history on health care are unacceptable and dangerous. Over the past year, policymakers and the current administration have taken several legislative and regulatory actions that have made it harder for individuals with pre-existing conditions like cancer to obtain health insurance coverage that is adequate, affordable, and available, thereby jeopardizing access to life-sustaining care. The recent expansion of short-term and association junk insurance plans is not helping our plight. Supreme Court nominee Kavanaugh will further accelerate this assault. He has exhibited an abysmal record on health care. His beliefs, writings, and philosophies are reckless and dangerous for millions of Americans like myself. Thank you.
Hello there. My name is Joe Merlino from Las Vegas. Yes, I am. This is my voice, and I'm using it today to share my story. In 2011, I learned I had a rare throat cancer. I had a procedure that saved my life and my voice. Then I had numerous follow-ups and tests over the next 3 years. But in 2014, my company notified me that due to the length of my medical leave, they could no longer pay for my health insurance. I was relieved when I was told that I qualified for Medicaid under the ACA's Medicaid ACA's Medicaid expansion, which my state of Nevada thankfully chose to implement. And that was under a Republican governor, too. In 2015, I was then able to purchase insurance on the ACA exchange, which covered the additional treatment I still needed. After 2 years out of work, thanks to the ACA with its Medicaid expansion and the access it gave me to the health care I needed, I was finally able to return to my job. Medicaid and the ACA took this 40-something-year-old in his prime working years who was shaken down by a devastating diagnosis and brought him back from near death to a 50-something-year-old functioning, working, tax-paying American again. And isn't that the point? If it weren't for the ACA and its Medicaid expansion, I surely wouldn't be here, standing here right now, a cancer survivor, to tell you my story. To confirm a judge to the Supreme Court such as Brett Kavanaugh, who has a history of stripping away Medicaid and being against the ACA, is a direct threat to tens of millions of Americans who rely on it for their care. If cancer didn't take my voice away, I'll be damn certain Trump and Kavanaugh don't either. This is my voice. Can you hear me now, Congress?
Hello. Good evening. It's times like this I wish I could sing, because I tell you, I got up this morning with my mind on justice. My name is Kelly Gregory, and I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I am a decorated veteran, served during the first Gulf War, come from a family with a history of serving this country all the way back to the French Indian War. I'm also here today as a terminal cancer patient to tell you my story. In 2002, just a few weeks after my 33rd birthday, I woke up in the middle of the night with a heart attack. By the way, everyone always says they came out of the blue. They're surprised. I think that's the point. It's a heart attack. It's not planned. I woke up in the middle of the night with a heart attack. Over the next 4 months, I had a heart attack every month. It took doctors months to figure out what was going on with me. They finally figured out that I had an up to that point unknown and undiagnosed genetic disorder that caused clotting. I was then marked as both heart attack survivor and genetic condition. Now, this was back in the bad old days before ACA. I had private insurance because I was a small business owner, and my insurance company was allowed, it was illegal, over the next several years to increase my premiums, quadrupled my premiums in a 2-year time period, and reduced my coverage to nothing. Boo. Yeah, exactly. Boo. I was a single parent and had a business, and I could no longer afford to carry that insurance, so I had to drop it. Then I applied for insurance with other companies, and I was turned down by every single one of them because of my pre-existing conditions. In my state, I could not qualify for Medicaid. So I was locked out of the healthcare system at the age of 36, uninsurable. Fast forward through the greatest recession this country's had in 100 years. I lost my business, my income. Finally started to recover, got my daughter in college, first in our family, and I was ready to take on the world. And over her first Christmas break back from college, I found a lump in my left breast. I told myself it was no big deal and it would go away. Well, it was a big deal and it didn't go away. It kept getting bigger and bigger. And I finally had to face the fact that something very serious was happening and I needed to deal with it. So I got on the telephone and tried to find a care provider that would see me. They don't get real excited when you call them and say, I don't have a job and I'm going to pay in cash and I don't have insurance. Can you give me an appointment as soon as possible? No one would see me. No one would work me into their schedule. I had one office that told me that they might be able to see me as a new patient in November, and this was May. And I told the lady over the telephone, I'll be dead by November. I can't do this. I finally found a care provider. You know who it was? Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood got me the necessary screening. They got on the telephones over a holiday weekend with some of the best doctors in Nashville. And the very first day of business at 8 a.m., I had an appointment with the best breast oncologist in Nashville, and it was all because of the work at Planned Parenthood. Now, I went through all that first testing, and through all of that testing, we found that the cancer had spread to my spine. Now, this is the kind of upgrade that you don't want to get. That meant that my diagnosis was stage 4, and it was terminal. It was an aggressive form of cancer, And if my course of treatment wasn't effective, I would be dead in less than a year. And that was in 2011. So I'm going to tell you, I know about impossible things. I know about facing great odds. When I started my treatment, my doctor said, this is going to suck. It's going to be awful, and you're going to think we're trying to kill you. But if you want to live, you've got to do everything, because we don't know what magic combination is going to work. That's right. So I did. I trusted my doctors, I trusted my faith, and I started treatment. Now I'm going to tell you, it was hard. It's hard. It's hard, just like what we're doing now is hard. It grinds you down. You get tired. Yeah. You get frustrated. You're in pain, just like I was. The thing about chemotherapy, you do it every week for 6 months. Every week I would get up, walk to that doctor's office, and sit down in that chair and pray that the drugs that they were pumping into my system were going to work. And you had to do it for 6 months. And the thing about it is, you don't even know if it's working. You don't even know if it's working. But it's the only thing they knew to do. Now, I've found in the last couple of years that activism work is a whole lot like chemotherapy. It's hard. And you have to do it all the time. Every time you turn around, you got to do something else. You got to canvass. You got to knock on doors. You got to phone bank. You got to register people to vote. You got to go to rallies. You got to do all of it. All of it. Because I'm here to tell you, I'm not supposed to be standing here today. I'm not supposed to be standing here today, but I am. I am witness to things that seem impossible can happen. You have got to, when you wake up in the morning of November 7th, and we get the news that Democrats have taken back the House, when we get the news that we've taken the Senate, when we get the news that we've taken state houses and governorships, you want to know that you didn't leave anything on the field. You want to go into that election night with no doubt that you have done everything you possibly can to make this happen. Because I am telling you, lives are on the line. The thing that makes my story extraordinary is not that it's unique. The thing that makes my story extraordinary is it happens every day in this country. Every day, people like me are given horrible news in exam rooms because we have failed to bring universal health care to this country. Every day, there are people in this country who have to decide if they're going to buy food or medicine. Every night, there are mama and daddies laying in bed, losing sleep, because they don't know how they're going to afford diabetes for their 5-year-old and keep a roof over their head. Okay? I'm going to tell you, let's make it plain, that is immoral. It's not just wrong. It is immoral. It is obscene that in the wealthiest culture to ever exist on the face of the planet has the majority of the people in this country that cannot afford a $400 emergency. That we have people with jobs, with 2 and 3 jobs, who cannot afford to see a doctor. It is obscene. Now this morning I sat in that confirmation hearing. I sat just a couple of feet behind Kavanaugh and I listened to those senators talk. Now I'm going to tell you, Senator Ben Sasse, in his opening statement, he was describing the criticism of Kavanaugh, and he said, there are folks screaming about dirty water and dirty air, and that Kavanaugh hates women, and that people are going to die if he's nominated. And Ben Sasse said, that's deranged. No, I'm going to tell you what's deranged. Deranged is the scenario that is my life. I am going to die an entirely preventable death because I was locked out of the healthcare system because of a pre-existing condition. He wants to say that it's deranged that we stand up and call this out. I'm telling you, when your house is on fire, you don't politely stroll over to the fire department and ask them if they could, in their own good time, come around and see what they can do about it. Right? You stand up and you holler out, Lord, help me. Right? The house is on fire. I'm going to tell you, I exist. You know, I've never asked why I was diagnosed with cancer. I've never asked why I had cancer. I've asked why I've lived this long. I've buried a lot of people a whole lot better than me. And I don't understand it. And all I can think of is I'm here today with this voice to tell this story. I am the ghost of Christmas future. If we don't change, if we don't bring justice and mercy to this country, there are going to be more people like me. There are going to be more people like my parents who are going to have to pick out my casket, and my daughter who's going to have to give my eulogy. That's deranged. I want to tell Senator Sasser, don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. I've been in battle. I know what a fight looks like, and I know when somebody's trying to kill me. And I'm going to tell you right now, if they're going to try to kill me, I'm going to make them look me in the eye while they do it. I'm not going to make it easy for them, and you shouldn't either.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful speech. And to give that brave, brave delivery, let's give her a round of applause and give all of them a round of applause for speaking out and telling these stories. That's exactly what these senators need to hear. But you know who we have to hear from next? An amazing fighter for women, families, the LGBT community, and all of us, Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky.
Anybody here from Alaska? I heard that you were here. We're all here. I came here just briefly to say thank you. And you know, Kelly is right. We have faced things that seemed impossible, and we have won. Because when we fight, we win. When we fight, when we fight. So this is the moment. This is our moment. I understand that we had a good day today. I was flying here and didn't hear much of it, but I heard that our team did a great job. We are not going to give up. And I think the biggest obstacle we face right now is that too many people in this country think that we cannot beat Kavanaugh. But we know that we can, right? So we're going to be here. We're going to be here. We're going to stop it. Kelly is absolutely right. We have faced obstacles that we thought could not be overcome. They told us, oh, they're going to repeal that Affordable Care Act. You remember that fight. And we stayed and we won. So when I ask you today, how do you feel this evening? You say powerful. How do you feel this evening? Powerful. Let's keep it up. We can do this. We can do this. We can win. When we fight, we win. Okay, let's do it.
Thank you so much. All right, if you care, that's right, if you care about the rights of LGBTQ Americans and families, you're going to love our next speaker. Give it up for Human Rights Campaign, Sarah McBride.
First off, can we give a big round of applause to Kaylee for being an incredible MC this evening? Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you all so much for coming out. Good evening. My name is Sarah McBride. I'm the National Press Secretary at the Human Rights Campaign, the nation's largest LGBTQ civil rights organization, and I am a proud transgender woman. But this evening I stand before you not just as someone who is transgender, but also as someone who's loved someone who's transgender. I met my future husband, Andrew, who was a transgender man fighting for equality, and we fell in love. About a year after we started dating, Andy was diagnosed with cancer. After undergoing treatment, Andy received the news that every single cancer patient fears. His cancer was back, it had spread, and for him it was terminal. When Andy found out that he didn't have much time left, he asked me to marry him. And we married on the rooftop of our building just 4 years ago last week. And then just 4 days after that, Andy passed away. But despite his plight, Andy always considered himself lucky. He had coverage and care that prolonged his life long enough for us to make more memories and for us to get married. But in Donald Trump and Brett Kavanaugh's America, without the Affordable Care Act and protections for people with pre-existing conditions, someone like Andy could be denied health care for two reasons: because they have cancer and because they are transgender. Make no mistake, that's right, make no mistake, in nominating Brett Kavanaugh to the U.S. Supreme Court, Donald Trump has picked someone he fully expects to do his bidding in gutting protections for people with pre-existing conditions and in ripping health care away from millions of Americans, from women to LGBTQ people to those living with HIV. The American public cannot afford for senators to pretend that Judge Kavanaugh's nomination is anything short than a direct threat on our access to health care, on our rights, and on our progress. We cannot afford senators to pretend that Roe is not at risk when Judge Kavanaugh has made clear his opposition to it. We cannot afford for senators to pretend that the rights of LGBTQ people are safe when his nomination comes from a pre-approved list given to him by some of the nation's most anti-LGBTQ activists and organizations. And we cannot pretend that the U.S. Senate is living up to its reputation as the greatest deliberative body in the world when a massive amount of Judge Kavanaugh's records in government remain unseen or were released just hours before this morning's hearing. What are they hiding, indeed? Judge Kavanaugh could be the tie-breaking vote in key cases where LGBTQ rights are at stake. From the Trump-Pence administration's ban on transgender troops, to efforts to license discrimination against LGBTQ people in the public square, to protections from discrimination for LGBTQ people in education, employment, and of course in healthcare. Let's be honest, Judge Kavanaugh is before the U.S. Senate today because Donald Trump Mike Pence and anti-equality activists have looked at his record, they have looked at his rhetoric, and they will believe he will be a fifth vote to undermine equality, to attack choice, and to sabotage our care. And as the U.S. Senate considers Judge Kavanaugh, they are not just voting on a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court, they are also voting on our rights, they are voting on our care, they are voting on our lives, and there is no question that they should vote no. Thank you all very much.
All right, everybody. Up next, we have someone who traveled a long way to be here, all the way from Missouri. Give it up for Eleanor Simmons.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eleanor Simmons. I'm a home care worker. I'm proud to stand here beside you, working men and women, to say no to Kavanaugh. I came to D.C. to join with all of my brothers and sisters to make sure that our senators hear from all the voters, the people, working people across the nation everywhere, know that Brett Kavanaugh is not the fair-minded justice we need to serve on the United States Supreme Court. Do we really think
exactly? And it's like
those hearings going on this week are likely to tell us anything different? Right. If the Senate confirmed Brett Kavanaugh, he will turn our nation's highest court into a weapon against the working people by ruling based on politics or who has the most money and power. We don't need that. I'm proud, very proud, to be a home care worker. I help people to live and stay in their home with dignity and respect, and not have to go into an institution. When I started doing home care work, I wasn't getting paid. I did this out of the love for people. Then I joined an agency. I got paid, but it wasn't very much. It wasn't even enough to take care of my needs or my children. They denied me the same dignity and respect that I was giving to my client. They denied me. Then I joined a union. Now, the agency had to recognize home care workers. It means I can focus on taking care of people in their homes. It means I can focus on myself as well. I didn't have health care until 5 years ago, in 2013, when I was diagnosed with stage 3 endometrial cancer, which is a lining of the uterus. Even though I'm healed and doing fine now, 5 years, cancer-free. If the Senate confirmed Brett Kavanaugh, insurance company could use that as an excuse to deny me care. Without good quality health care, you can't maintain a healthy lifestyle. You can't stay alive. Because without quality health care, I would have been dead today. The next Supreme Court justice will play an incredible, important role in shaping laws that will impact the working family every day from generation to generation to generation. Almost every American have human rights, personal liberty, and freedom is at stake. This country, we all have equal rights. Senator McCaskill, I say to as Senator Blunt, remember, you are here for what is right, what is best for the people. So vote no for Canavan. Vote no. Vote no. Vote no. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, guys. Up next, we have the most incredible woman you will hear from. Give it up for the president of the National Women's Law Center, Fatima Goss Graves.
All right, it's dark. It's getting a little hot. Are you guys ready to go home? Are you ready to go home? Are you ready to fight? See, today the country met Brett Kavanaugh. But today the country also met the women around this country who will rise up against this nomination. Women are rising up. Today they were putting their bodies and lives on the line. Today they were gathered by the hundreds in vigil. Today you heard them around the country saying, wait a minute, what are we doing here? And if you were watching this hearing, you saw some of the Republican senators say things like, oh, they're being uncivil, they're being loud, they're being hysterical. Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. We will not be silent. We cannot be silent because this entire hearing has been tainted. We cannot be silent because we are having a hearing when we don't even have any of his record. They said today they have something like 5% of his documents. So it does beg the question of what are they hiding? What are they hiding about his role in the Bush White House? What are they hiding about his time working for Kinstar? What are they hiding?
What are they hiding?
Well, here's what we do know, and it's not good. We know that Kavanaugh, when he was a judge, voted to block a young woman from accessing abortion. So I don't want to hear anyone say that they don't know where he stands on Roe. We know that Kavanaugh voted to allow bosses to override their employees' ability to get access to contraception. I don't want to hear anything about Kavanaugh is for personal liberty. And we know that he has criticized again and again the Affordable Care Act. We know that there are cases that are on their way to the Supreme Court where the very question is whether people with pre-existing conditions like me and probably like most of you out here will be able to get health care coverage that they need. And we know that Kavanaugh slammed the courthouse door to workers again and again and again, and that is only with having 5% of his record. So will we be silent? No. Will we be silent? No. No, we will let our senators know that a vote for Kavanaugh is a vote against women. A vote for Kavanaugh is a vote against workers. A vote for Kavanaugh is a vote against LGBTQ people. It's a vote against communities of color. It is a vote against people with disabilities. It is a vote against all of us. So hear us loud and clear. I love you. We're voting no on Kavanaugh.
All right, everybody. We have some awesome folks here all the way from Alabama, where I bet you it's hotter than here. Give it up for April, Ginger, and Avery.
Hey, y'all. My name is April, and I'm joined here tonight with my wife, Ginger, and our daughter, Avery. As we know, the next Supreme Court justice will impact the civil and constitutional rights in our country for many years to come. Brett Kavanaugh's record is clear, and it is safe to say if Kavanaugh is confirmed, it could pose a direct threat to reproductive rights, affordable health care, and LGBTQ equality. When Ginger and I started the process of adoption, it was a true struggle. We were turned away from several agencies because we were either not legally married or because those agencies refused to work with gay and lesbian people. Right? Ironically, while those agencies that were turning us away and we were seeking to find help, there were 1,800 children in Alabama in the foster care system awaiting to be adopted. 1,800 children seeking someone to call their own. 1,800 children awaiting for their forever families. 22 months of waiting, and we finally were able to make our family complete. Except legally, Ginger wouldn't become a parent for several more years when marriage equality finally became the law of the land.
That is correct. When our daughter was adopted, I had no parental rights. I was nothing more than just a legal stranger. Although I poured my heart and energy and soul into raising our child each and every day, I had zero legal rights until 8 years later. We are worried that Kavanaugh's nomination could have devastating consequences on our families and families like our own. Anti-gay discrimination hurts our families. It hurts our kids. Children have been turned away from emergency medical services, and they have been rejected from daycare centers simply because their parents are gay. Lesbian couples have been rejected by midwives and even left on the side of the road with their children by a taxi driver who saw those parents kiss. Earlier this summer, April and I celebrated our 21st anniversary. Over the course of our long life together, it seems that our country has made progress. Yet, just last year, Alabama passed a law to allow faith-based adoption agencies to refuse to place children with gay or lesbian parents. These organizations can turn away hopeful parents based on their religious beliefs, despite the fact there are still thousands of children awaiting love, awaiting hope, awaiting someone to call their own. 9 other states have passed those same laws, and 2 court cases are making their way through the federal courts, which could potentially end up in front of the Supreme Court. Neil Gorsuch, Trump's last nominee, said he would support precedent, then turned around and wrote a dissent arguing Arkansas could keep a married lesbian mom off of her child's birth certificate, even though the Obergefell marriage equality decision specifically included birth certificates. Y'all, we cannot afford another extremist nominee. Our families can't afford it. Our kids can't afford it. Our brave, kind, and resilient daughter is now 11, and she would like to close with a few words.
I deserve a court that will ensure a democracy that is deeply rooted in liberty, justice, and true equality. I deserve a Supreme Court justice that will not stop the progress that has been made toward legal equality for families like my own. I and every child of a gay and lesbian parent should never have to fear anything less than full family equality. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever.
Thank you. We are in good hands, people. If the next generation's like that, we are going to be okay. Next up, we have some more folks who have traveled all the way from North Dakota. Give it up for Angel Young and all of her North Dakotan friends. Woo!
We've talked to her already, so. Hi, everybody. We're from North Dakota. We represent various tribes throughout North Dakota. And we composed this letter to our senators, Senator Hoeven and Senator Heitkamp, and reminding them why we need to vote no on this issue. My name is Angel Young, and I am a citizen of the Standing Rock Nation in North Dakota. I am a mother. I am a grandfather. I'm a grandmother, I'm sorry. I'm a grandmother, a sister. I am an aunt, and I'm also a veteran of the United States Army. I come from a long line of veterans dating back to the French and Indian War, so we have our warriors in our blood. So I came here today to remind Congress that the federal government of the United States has the duty to protect and to trust the responsibility of our tribal nations. This includes every tribal citizen and not only the tribal government, as we are U.S. citizens as well. Our tribes have been on what we call Turtle Island since the pre-colonization times. We expect the federal government, along with federal partners, to honor tribal sovereignty and to protect trust responsibility in all lands. I came from North Dakota to urge Congress to vote no on Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court of the United States. Based on his sordid history, I do not have to guess what type of an attorney Mr. Kavanaugh is. Regarding nations of the United States, he has begrudgingly issued opinions and statements against tribal nations that is detrimental to our future. He has written a couple of opinions on Indian law cases, Van versus the Department of Interior, plus another on an administrative law matter in which the Indian tribe was a plaintiff in Hoopa Valley Tribe versus FERC. He also wrote a short concurring and dissenting opinion in a matter involving the USA PACT Act, Gordon versus Holder, none of which he did right in support of tribal interests. Right? In an editorial written by Kavanaugh, published in a Wall Street Journal, Mr. Kavanaugh declares that Native Hawaiians, those of indigenous heritage, are unfairly protected by the U.S. Constitution. Kavanaugh defended efforts to strip away the rights of Native Hawaiians in choosing the state official responsible for protecting the rights of and culture of Hawaii's indigenous peoples. Kavanaugh argued that giving this choice to Native Hawaiians instead of all Native Hawaiian voters, constitutional racial separatism rather than an effort to support community that suffers historic injustices at the hands of the United States government. Does that sound familiar? Right? This demonstrates not only his ignorance to the systems that perpetuate the inequality, but also willingness to diminish the voices of marginalized groups for political gain. I would also like to mention that Kavanaugh's opinions will also have kept alive an attack on healthcare. I am one of the 10 million Americans that suffer from rheumatoid arthritis, a pre-existing condition. That attacks that Kavanaugh have led towards excluding people like myself would have limited me from being insured and leaving across and having to access adequate health care. Is this who we want representing us? I don't think so. I urge you to call your senators to vote no to Kavanaugh. Vote no. I thank you all for listening to us, and we thank you for all having us here. We're very honored to be a part of this.
Thank you so much, Angel. That was amazing. Thank you. You know, I know we have a lot of demands tonight. We're demanding that our senators vote no on Brett Kavanaugh, and we are demanding justice. So our next speaker is from the organization Demand Justice. Give it up for Chris Kang.
All right, I am fired up. We have been here for 2 hours in the heat with the bugs. We're losing sunlight, and we're here because this is the fight of our lives. How many of you watched the hearing this morning and before Chuck Grassley could even take a breath, saw Kamala Harris jump in and say, "I object"? How many of you watched Cory Booker, Sheldon Whitehouse, Dick Blumenthal, Amy Klobuchar stand up and say, "This is not normal"? How many of you saw Patrick Leahy, Dick Durbin, Chris Coons, and Dianne Feinstein say, "We have had enough"? And how many of you saw my favorite, Mazie Hirono, in her introduction, look Brett Kavanaugh in the eye and say, "I know you're a partisan, ideological person who's going to say one thing tomorrow and gut Roe next year"? I have been through 6 of these Supreme Court fights, and I have seen nothing like this before. And do you know why? It's because of us. It's because us demanding that our Democratic senators do not treat this as a normal nomination. It is because we are picking up the phones. We are in rallies back home. We are in rallies right here. We are in people's face. 70 people got arrested today to stand up against Brett Kavanaugh. There's no way these Democratic senators would have done what they did with the fire and the passion and the energy that they showed today if we didn't tell them to. And we are out there because we know what's at stake. We know that tomorrow in federal court, the Trump administration is going to argue to take away the patient protections of the Affordable Care Act. And they know that Brett Kavanaugh is going to be there at the end of at the Supreme Court to rubber stamp that decision. We know what's at stake when Republicans are so gleeful at the prospect of overturning Roe versus Wade that Senator Lindsey Graham can't help himself but to say the quiet part out loud. Interview after interview at today's hearing again, he said, "You know what? Any precedent can be overturned. Brett Kavanaugh knows how to overturn precedent. Don't believe settled law." They know what's at stake, and they're going to try to gaslight us and tell us that we don't know what Brett Kavanaugh is going to do the very second he has a chance to gut Roe, to overturn precedent, to criminalize abortion, and put women and their doctors in jail for their health care decisions. We know what's at stake when Trump's own lawyers tell us that if Bob Mueller subpoenas Trump, they're going to take it all the way to the Supreme Court. Why do you think they're so confident? Because Trump has picked a guy who doesn't think Nixon should have turned over the tapes, who doesn't think a sitting president should be indicted, who thinks a president should be able to say who can investigate him, when he can investigate it, and how much they can be investigated, because they know that out of every single possible person Trump could have picked, this is the guy that will let him go scot-free. This is what's at stake, and this is what we're fighting for. We know why we have to stop Kavanaugh. We have made a lot of inroads, but let me tell you something. 22 Democratic senators have not yet announced their opposition. 22 Democratic senators still think this is business as usual, that they need to hear more, that maybe something will come out. We already know Brett Kavanaugh's record. We know how broken this process is, and we know it is long past time for Democrats to unite and fight this nomination. 22 senators, my own senators, have not yet stood up and voted and announced that they're going to oppose Kavanaugh. Tim Kaine, Mark Warner, where are you? Everybody, take out your phone and go to whipthevote.org and find out where your senator is. Folks coming down here from Maryland might be surprised to know Ben Cardin's not a firm no. Time to whip the vote. Time for us to get our Democratic senators united and then really take it to Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski and show them we know what's at stake. We're here to fight for our health care, for the right to abortion, and to make sure this president is held accountable. Join us. Join Demand Justice. Go to whipthevote.org and let's start calling our senators, and don't stop until every single one of them has come out as no. Thank you.
last cheer, you guys. I'm going to say, well, you're all going to say, Kavanaugh is too extreme. Keep him off the court supreme. Kavanaugh is too extreme. Keep him off the court supreme. Kavanaugh is too extreme. Keep him off the court supreme. Thank you. Our final speaker tonight, she is wonderful. She is fighting alongside all of us. She is from the Daily Coast. You may have heard of it. Give it up for Rebecca Bultwater-Posa. Woo!
So I'm here tonight because I'm one of the many lawyers who reads about Brett Kavanaugh pretty much all day. I would give you other legal qualifications, but there's one that really matters most, and that's that earlier this year I sued Donald Trump for my constitutional rights, and I won. So now I know Brett Kavanaugh, and I know the court system. I've been in it. I know how the White House nomination process is supposed to work. I've been there too. And I can tell you, in my professional capacity, there's a lot at stake. I can also tell you that I feel that every day. I'm gay. I'm Latinx. I'm a woman. I have a disability. More than any of those, though, I have a 12-year-old goddaughter. She turns 12 this week. And I always thought that her life would be better than mine. She would have more rights than I've had. Like I had more rights than my mother, and she had more rights than her mother, who came to this country because of the rights that we have right now and are fighting to protect. If Brett Kavanaugh is confirmed, she will not have more rights than me. If Brett Kavanaugh is confirmed, our rights will begin to diminish. And that will happen right away. Not slowly, not gradually. With one decision, Brett Kavanaugh could eliminate regulations, in essence, the things that protect our water, our air, our children from faulty products. With one decision, Brett Kavanaugh could strike down precedent that is integral to women's health and to letting us marry the people that we love. With one decision, Brett Kavanaugh could strike the ACA, which provides incredible health care and benefits to so many Americans. And I know Brett Kavanaugh, and I know the courts, and I know the White House counsel's office, but I also know we can win. I know because I've seen it. I saw it with healthcare earlier this year. I've seen it in court. I see it here today with all of the people who are gathered. And like Chris said, it is the fight of our lives. So please, join me, join Chris, join all of us in making it that fight. Thank you.
All right, guys. We're all finished here, but before we go, let's just give one final cheer so Mitch McConnell can hear us right there in that balcony. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Woo! Thank you so much. Go home, rest up. See you at the vigil tomorrow. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn here with act.tv, speaking to the hero from earlier, Heidi Seek. Heidi, please tell us about your SCOTUS nomination proceedings.
Well, it was really fun to talk to you earlier today, Jocelyn. So we started the morning waiting outside the Hart Building. I actually was the first person to go into the hearing, so that was a little scary, ominous. But it was a crew of amazing women leaders, who had all shown up late last night to stand in line and be present for this hearing. So we all went in and we saw all of the senators sitting there in the Judiciary Committee. It was Senator Grassley, Jeff Sessions, and then Brett Kavanaugh walks in, and you can certainly feel that moment where you could see this is the older white male power, and they were determined to keep it. Meanwhile, the minute the gavel went down, Senator Kamala Harris opened her mouth and said, "Excuse me, but a moment of procedure," or whatever she said. It was really amazing. And it was so inspiring to have our senators, the women senators, then started to pipe up to stop the hearing. So that was really inspiring. And then we all jumped up because we knew it's at stake. And the rest you can see on ABC News. But it was really important for us to make sure that our voices were heard. We were arrested in the hearing room. I have zero regrets. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I wish I could have stayed longer. They removed us aggressively, and that we were held for a couple of hours and outside in Southwest DC, and we're back, so we won't stop. It was worth every moment. So what was it like for you?
I mean, it was super intense, one, and it was lovely to see the Democrats grow a spine just in time for you and Linda to show up and say what you had to say. It really was. Like, the Democrats said, hey, this is crazy, and then you guys got up and started shouting. Were you nervous?
No, I actually wasn't nervous at all. I really wasn't. It was like, there's so much at stake right now, really. Yeah. Like, what is fear? What is fear right now? What are nerves right now? It's like, what do I have to lose except looking stupid? Who cares? You know, Brett Kavanaugh is going to take away fundamental freedoms and rights of this country. Yeah. The country before Brett Kavanaugh, and if he is confirmed, which he cannot be, the country after a Brett Kavanaugh will be completely different than what we know of today, and we have to get that. And everyone needs to do whatever they possibly can to stop this nomination. And listen, like, it's for a tiny little moment of me being able to speak the truth, and a tiny moment of the Capitol Police saying, move, it's worth it. You have to speak the truth.
And you guys were like, from my perspective, seeing all these gorgeous women collaborate, and there was a vibe of fun to it. Like, there really was. It's a sober thing, it's a scary thing, but I think a lot of people who are intimidated should watch you guys' video and realize, like, these are beautiful, driven citizens. You all can do that, you know, whether it's with a SCOTUS hearing or something of equal importance.
I think it's very clear the resistance is women. It just is. It's filled with women doing amazing, badass things. And we just happened to be the folks that walked in first. There were dozens that were being arrested after us. Again, amazing, badass women, people of color, men, trans folks. Everybody understands what's at stake. I think it was less, I would say I didn't feel the fun of it. I felt the resolve of it, the depth of the mission. And the depth of the mission right now is to make sure that we band together and honestly tell the truth and speak truth to power. That's the key. And so all of us that were walking in that hearing knew exactly what's at stake. We knew we had to work together. We knew that we had to raise our voices together, and we will continue to do it. But that's what the resistance has been. It's women coming together and raising their voices with our allies. You know, our trans folk, our men allies. It's just, we have to do it.
And you're absolutely on the right side of history, which is why we may win this fight, because even Republicans are realizing this is totally out of order. This is unprecedented.
It's crazy. So here's the thing, like, they are resolved, the Republicans are resolved to get this nomination passed. So they will do whatever it takes to make that happen. We have to do whatever it takes to stop it. So it is so important. We know the math is not on our side, so we have to flip 2 Republican senators. All focus on Collins and Murkowski. Collins in Maine, Murkowski in Alaska. All focus on them. The second is we got to be calling all of our senators, no matter who they are. The Democrats that are with us, we got to tell them to do more, to step up, to be bolder, to be stronger, to be more outrageous, whatever it takes. To folks that are on the fence, like Heidi Heitkamp in North Dakota, or Donnelly in West Virginia, or who else do we have? Or Donnelly in Indiana and Joe Manchin in West Virginia. They have to be shored up. We got to get Chuck Schumer just whipping the vote on that. Absolutely critical. The Democrats stick together. So everybody can be calling their senators and telling them one of 3 things. Either, you know, Alaska and Maine, vote no. If you're a Democrat, do more. If you're on the fence, really, honestly, stay with us. And then the other thing is, like, we got to get ourselves here. If you can, come to DC, please do. We need your physical presence. I know it's a big ask, but we're going to be out here fighting, protesting, in the streets, in the buildings, doing whatever it takes. There is room for you. It's a really important thing. Take a step, come on out. And if you can't, Show up in your states, in your localities, in your communities. Make sure your elected officials know what you care about.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And again, thank you for what you did this morning. It was so impressive. It was a privilege to watch it. And you know what? They heard us.
Yeah, they heard us.
Okay.
They heard us. And thanks to you, too.
Thanks so much, Heidi.
Thanks for being here.
Are we good, Rebecca?